McKinsey seizing the, what is it, AI advantage? Did I butcher the agentic AI advantage? Excuse me. Killer report, something that we were just riffing on, off camera, and here we go. We're going to bring it right into those that watch this as living room and otherwise. But Tati, there's a lot in there that we could talk about, and one of the things that jumped out to me, just because I guess my orientation is this notion of siloed AI teams, which I think causes a whole lot of problems for all sorts of obvious and maybe less obvious reasons. But I wonder if you might want to share a couple of key takeaways from that report that really stood out to you, and we'll obviously link to this stuff so folks can get a hold of it. But yeah, curious your thoughts and anything that you thought was especially like, whoa.
So many gems in there, so many things that were interesting to see in numbers. So that several things stood out. The most important ones, the first one, only 10% of companies using AI are seeing significant financial benefit.
Yeah. Oof.
So that's insane. And then 90% of the pilots drop off after successfully executing a pilot. So that is the most glaring thing for me there is pilot purgatory, right? Really, like high effort, low ROI. You pick the wrong things to pilot.
Yes.
Just say it out loud. It doesn't say it quite like that in the report, but that's essentially it, right? That you can talk all day about data silos and AI teams that are siloed and folks not talking to each other and processes. Again, we've talked about this so many times about how if you have those issues in your operations, they're going to show up in your AI flows because they are in your workflows. They're embedded in your workflows. You're automating a very flawed process. So that's one thing. So that's the unsurprising, but I love that they put some numbers to it. And the other point was specifically around that this most of the adoption of AI that's being reported is happening in silo functions like R&D or marketing. It is not enterprise wide. The reason for that is because in my mind, and again, this is not in the McKinsey report, but we've been talking about this all along, companies are still thinking about enterprise-wide, not as a orchestration of efforts. They're thinking about in that 2018 to 24 month roadmap that they're hiring somebody and paying them $10 million to do. Do not do that.
Agent this, agent that, just AI
That's
it,
not the way to go. One more, for as many clients we have having gaining the benefits on what we bring, and then you have another set of folks we talk to that are like, oh, my CIO or my CTO is working with insert big name here, which I read an article the other day saying that was insurance. I will disagree that that's insurance. I really just think it's a shield. It's a bag of excuses from when things don't work. You go, well, big name told me to do this. But the reality is that if you're gonna need orchestration, you're gonna have it works. I will say it again because we have to say it again. It works differently than your prior tech transformations.
Yes.
It works differently. It doesn't work in the same. Orchestration is no longer the same as what you saw before. It was that enterprise-wide initiative that was driven by one department. That it is different. We can talk all day about this. Ping us. We can talk to you about this. The agentic AI drives value by really just compressing, just collapsing this cost of the action, not just the cost of information. So I think that was one of the other points that was really interesting. Good dashboards don't move markets. That fast action is what really moves it. The fourth thing was on the top performing companies. They are deploying agents already in customer support, in procurement, in finance reconciliation, and compliance monitoring. I've seen a lot of really interesting solutions in those spaces out there. They're seeing speed gains up to 100% of what they had before, and they're seeing cost reductions up to 40%. Now, I don't know many operators out there that can claim that they've seen anything like this at any point in their careers. So it's a really incredible moment. What we're talking about before, the orchestration, is crucial. It is not just technical integration. You have to redesign workflows. You have to redesign incentives. No one's really talking about incentives. Like it sits somewhere else. Again, talk about silos. Accountability structures. You can't just drop in LLMs.
No,
That's
no.
not
God
that's not
forbid.
how this works. That the plug and play promise. And by the way, that's not before someone says, "Well, don't you say that? Aren't you saying that you guys work really fast and you work?" It's not a plug and play promise. We look at your workflows. We look at your incentives. We look at accountability structures. We look at governance because you have to. You can't just drop a tool on top and hope it will
Yeah.
work.
Can I jump
And
in on that, Tati? Because I want to give you something to react to. Because this is a little technical, but it is exactly what you're saying. But from the Nerdville Alec perspective, I think one of the things that folks don't realize, especially those that aren't technical, is there's a massive difference between deterministic and
then,
probabilistic software, right? So here comes Nerdville. Deterministic is, what feels like a million years ago, but pre-ChatGPT's launch, before we all had access to these, massive brains, LLMs, you basically would determine what is the problem I'm trying to solve, and therefore how do I build software that solves said problem and empowers a human to tell the software what to do, when and where and how and whatever, right? So type it in, right? So that's deterministic. Probabilistic is a totally different animal, right? And this is what steps into intelligent systems and autonomy, because you have a brain, the LLM, that powers the probabilistic nature of the way, to your point, quote unquote, more or less, software has to be reimagined. Workflows have to be reimagined, because now you got a brain that can step in there and either operate more or less in an autonomous manner and or augment human capabilities, so you can do something in 9 seconds that used to take 9 days. That is not plug and play. That is the furthest thing from plug and play. And so I just want to give the audience a little technical whiz bang on that, because if I were to hear that and I were to look that up and I wasn't technical, I'd be like, it would confirm instincts, right? That's what it is. It's the deterministic versus probabilistic in the brain.
No, brilliant description. But then, in addition to that, I wanted to mention, because we talk about when we talk about lane chain and
Yeah.
creating solutions and tools that sit atop of what you already have, like it's a
Yep.
layer, and we say that it can easily, so that can be misconstrued for plug and
Yes.
play in a sense.
Yes.
So that's what I just wanted to the fact that it sits atop, and you don't need to redesign your entire tech stack is one thing. Separately, yes, you need to do way more than just what someone is selling you, and just this is not a USB drive.
Well, to that point, I'll build on it. And you're absolutely right. So, like, if you were to take LangChain, think of it as a chassis, what have you, but you put LangChain, quote unquote, on top of your existing infrastructure. Let's say your existing infrastructure, if you're fortunate, has some pretty mature APIs, right? What are APIs? That's a bridge into it, so that the LangChain infrastructure can enable one system's data to be understood by another, blah 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 blah, right? And therefore, to your point, Tati, it is plug and play in that regard, in that you can then introduce the brain to interpret what we just kind of ran through, and that is plug and play 100%. And you can just jump on a Harrison Chase's Twitter and you can see all the killer examples of what they're putting out in the wild, for example, with LangChain. But yeah, if you know where to go, boy, you move fast.
Domain expertise is how you know where to go, is how you know
That's
where
it.
the holes are, is where you know which process need to be redesigned, which processes you don't need to touch because it will make no real difference. What are
Nope.
the pieces that you need? And again, whether you're working with us or with someone else, if your partner is not asking you these questions, if they're not looking for the holes in your data, if they're
Yeah.
not looking for the holes in your processes, the gaps in your processes, again, I've been doing this for way longer than I want to mention, 20 plus years in operations. I'm yet to meet a process that cannot be improved, that doesn't have gaps, that doesn't have opportunities. So within that, if you think about the idea of the plug and play up front is what's off the mark, of someone saying, hey, but again, this plays back to, and this is why we're urging you to if you're listening, to think through how do you get the right partners to tell you the truth, to tell you what's the real deal with your situation? Because it's very easy. Folks are scared of this. They want an easy solution. They want the silver bullet. And there's so many vendors out there taking advantage of this moment, of this opportunity to tell you this is my silver bullet. Just, sign here. And this is what's going to do. And then you end up with what McKinsey, not me, is saying that is 90% of pilots dropped. So you spend the money, you put the people in, you spend the resources, you burn everybody out because there's a very high cognitive load in all of this, right?
Yes.
New things, a lot of us are learning, a lot of us are
and you got a day job, you got stuff to do,
You got stuff to do, and you're putting your neck on the line because as an executive, as a leader, for every initiative, and this is not news to any leader, every initiative you implement and you bring in, you're sticking your neck out to say, this is something that's going to work. I stand behind this. Yes. So for every pilot that drops, points deducted.
Totally. I'm going to give a big shout out, to a company category, I'll say, but I will name the company that pioneered the space, Celonis, right? So if anyone wants to get into the depth of what Tati just said around process, I think one of the smartest places you can play is step into Celonis's wheelhouse. Celonis provides process intelligence. Celonis has invested accordingly over the last couple of years to create a process intelligence graph, which is a data modeling extension of all of those data sets across a very complex, large company, for example. So you can see into, like an MRI, you can see into the breadth and depth of all of your various process data points, like digital exhaust that comes off the back of this stuff. And then you aggregate it up, and the LLM, which effectively creates, kind of a digital twin of your process intelligence. And therefore, to Tati's point, you then get to see, hey, where are these gaps in our process? And equally as important, what is the value creation opportunity, and therefore what should we do about it, and how do we stack rank it, and how do we then monitor and realize the value and operationalize? And so that is a company, and that is a category that isn't a silver bullet, but boy, is that quite useful to step into process intelligence, because it's kind of like a single source of truth, right? And then you can work off of that and create value accordingly. So
yeah, they're incredible when you're talking about modular tools and tools that go in to look for a specific problem and to solve. That's what we talk about orchestration, because together,
yes,
those are your silver bullet. All of those different initiatives orchestrated in the right place, that actually will kill the beast, right? That will make it work.
That's what you want to bet on.
And but it's not the one thing that's good. Which is why we talked so much about modularity. We talked about the last thing I will mention from that report, which was staggering, was that only 3% of companies have deployed agentic AI at scale.
Damn, I didn't see that,
that means 97% either are not ready, not doing it, or doing it wrong.
Well, to that point, Tati, and because so folks can recycle and go back to the other video, the Gartner report, right? So if you hadn't seen the previous video, or how are these mashed up, Gartner came out and said, as of end of June, that they analyzed thousands of technology vendors that are positioning themselves and their value proposition as agentic, right? Agentic AI, however you want to call it. And they found that essentially 99% of them are fake. Those are their words, Gartner's words, not mine. And therefore, Tati, to your point, that doesn't surprise me. You're doing the math. If only 1% are really the signal, it makes sense that 3% of the population is out there crushing it. And boy, are they going to eat the lunch of their competition, because this stuff compounds.
Lunch and dinner and everything in between. I mean, this is agentic AI closes the loop between knowing and doing.
Nicely said. There's a headline.
And that's all I'm going to say there.
Mic drop. Let's end it there so people can. That's an Easter egg if you don't watch the whole thing, but if you watch the whole thing, boy, is that a headline. I love it. Thank you, Tati. As always, killer analysis. Talk soon. See ya.